So our speaker this evening is a true believer in the African continent and the need to build on our human capital so as to market ourselves in order to transform our fortunes in the global stage. She's passionate about drawing inspiration from making a difference in everything she does and believes that the opportunity to build role models in the corporate and entrepreneurship world, serving as a catalyst and connecting resources to help enterprises overcome adversity and seize opportunities to realize their full potential. She has sat on several boards, including APSA Kenya Limited, KEPSA, which is the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, Jambojet, Vivo Activewear, amongst others. As Catherine said, she has recently been promoted as the Chief Executive Officer of Scangroup and is currently an ambassador for women on boards. Ladies, please welcome our speaker for the evening, Patricia Ithau, who will be speaking to us on the topic of how to play the game as a woman within the boardroom. Some of the issues that she'll be touching on include: how do you brand yourself? How do you become assertive without necessarily being obnoxious? How do you engage in self-smart promotion? I know a lot of times we shy away from speaking about our achievements. So how do you bring those up without sounding cocky, in the boardroom? How do you display confidence even when you feel powerless? A lot of the times we get invited into boards that perhaps we may not necessarily understand the industry. We may get into committees that perhaps we don't have much experience in. So how do you engage in that space? And finally, what are the do's and don'ts in the boardroom? Do you serve tea? Are you the one to always do the praying? Patricia, the platform is yours. Karibu sana.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for all of you who have made it this evening. People have started going back to work now, so you're wandering around and driving around. And I must admit, my first shock over these today and yesterday was how much traffic there is, despite there being no fuel. And so the conversation we're having just before this is, I think it's because of all the queues outside petrol stations, and those are creating tons and tons of traffic jams and blockages and everything else. So for those of you who've been able to make it here this evening, thank you so much. So I have been given a very interesting topic to speak about, and before I even say anything, I'm going to start by giving a bit of context, or not context, just some listening technique. And that listening technique is around the fact that I tend to keep them very simple, short and very, very simple. And the reason I do that is I myself, it takes me, I get, my mind wanders very, very quickly, and it moves from one thing to the next. The ability to absorb things, as we all know, for some people who wind up probably in academics is better, but for some of us who are hungry and impatient sometimes and really wanting a mind that's permanently racing, you want people to get to the point as quickly as possible. So I try and do that. So the bits of advice that I start with sharing with anybody who has to listen to me is the advice that I use on myself. And that advice is listen to take out one thing, maybe two, and if you're absolutely brilliant, three. Okay? So use that context as you listen to me going on and having a conversation with all of you this evening, because there'll be lots of things said. And if you try and absorb everything, it's going to be, throwing, water on the mud on a wall and hoping some of it is going to stick. So this for me is a conversation. Okay, initially it is a conversation in which it's a little bit one-sided because I am the one doing the talking. But when we go later on into the breakout rooms, it will be a good opportunity for us to have the conversations. So I'm going to be talking about this whole space around building, what was I to talk about? How to play the game as a woman. Okay, how to play the game as a woman. So my first myth debunker is that the first way to play the game as a woman is not to think of yourself as a woman. I have been speaking this and saying this even in the last month in the conversations that I was invited to join in the International Women's Month and talking about breaking biases. And so my first message is, if indeed you want to play the game, as a woman, this is almost paradoxical. Do not think of yourself as a woman. And why do I say that? I mean, why and where am I coming from saying don't think of yourself as a woman? You know, the whole concept of being a woman, as we know, and the reason we have all these platforms to support our mentorship and our building and everything else, is because we're coming from a place where we have a lot to do to bring ourselves to the same level. And the reason we have a lot of things to do is not because we're not capable or we're not able, but it's because society put us in a particular place. So what we're trying to do is reverse that, where we have been put, so that we have our rightful place at the table. And so that we, as a 50% of this engine that needs 100%, can fire fully. Now, one of the things is, if you ever go into somewhere thinking that you have a shortcoming, or that you have an inability, or that you have a handicap, that is exactly how you're going to play. Okay? There's always been this expression that is said, if you listen to sports people, and analogies around sports people are always shared very widely. If you go into a race saying that I want to come third, you might come out fifth. Nobody enters a race going in to say, I want to be third, or I want to be at least fifth. You always go into a race to win. Now, if you take that same mentality around this whole space about women winning as a woman means you're coming with that same handicap. You're coming with those same inabilities. So remove that. We're in a world where gender actually is a social construct, okay? So if we're at that particular place, remove that concept and tell yourself, I am a person. Now, the simple thing that does to you is the confidence that it gives you, because as you come in as a person, you've removed all the files, all the biases, and all the prejudices. You're able to bring your whole self to that table. And I always say, if you ask if any man goes into a place coming in as a man, he never will. So why do we wait? At which point is it going to be this tipping point where we then decide, actually, I'm going to start, believing that I have a right to be here. So I'm not going to come in thinking as a woman. I'm going to come in thinking as a person. It doesn't even occur to them when they come in to say that I'm coming into this session as a man. Nope. They come in as a person. They come in as an individual. They come in as a resource. They come in as a contributor. They come in as a board member for this particular forum who is bringing a skill set. And because that is a mindset that they have carried, they play at a different level and they're able to bring out the best in them. So that's the first myth from this title I want to debunk. Yeah. The minute you think that, it is your first step to building your confidence and to allowing you to play at a different level. So you can take that to the bank. And I'd like each one of you, as an example, over this week, any particular forum where you've always gone in and thought, oh my God, I'm the only woman in this room, and oh my goodness, they're going to think that. Forget that. Start removing that from your head and walking, feeling, I am this person who's coming in to bring whatever is a capability. And you will start to see the difference with respect to how you play. So I'm going to talk about simple, as I said, psychological and little tools which nobody will tell you, and which sometimes are very obvious. So somebody may say, that's very silly. We're waiting for something deeper. But there's nothing deep about it. That's the first message that I'd like to share today. So one of the things I talk about a lot is this whole concept of personal branding and how to build a personal brand and what is involved in personal branding and everything else. And I'm a marketer at heart. That's why I started my career. The first 18 years of my career were actually in marketing before I moved into general management and running businesses. So if you ask me what's really my DNA is a whole concept called marketing, understanding self-building brands, developing insights, and all those type of things. So very, very early on, I started to make the connection between the work that I did, which was building brands for FMCGs or fast-moving consumer goods, which is where I worked, to the way that there is a very clear parallel with how you can also build your personal brand. The principles were exactly the same. What is it you as a person are bringing? What is it you want people to experience? What do you want people to know about you? That's exactly what we do when we're trying to identify or to build a service or a product. So why then can we not do it to ourselves? So 3 principles that when you're trying to build a personal brand that I've always employed. By the way, these 3 principles can be expanded into many other areas, but remember I said I keep it simple. 3 C's. The 3 C's for building a brand are clarity, consistency, and constancy. Now, let me walk through what those mean if indeed you're trying to build this personal brand, and how then, first, I have walked into this place as a person, right? But this person has attributes which they have built, which are clear, which have been consistent, and which are constant, meaning that's what you see all the time. Clarity for me is you being very clear what it is you stand for. And indeed, when you figure out that is what you stand for, that is what you offer, yeah, that is what you want to be seen, that is what will be communicated of you, then the next stage becomes that you consistently display those qualities that you have made clear around what you stand for. And then, of course, when we talk about constancy, is making sure at every right opportunity, they're constantly available, they are seen, and they're demonstrated. Very, very simple way to build a personal brand. And let me tell you why that is so important and where we start to trip and people start to trip in this particular instance. You have come across, and the brand and the person that you are and what you're presenting as you sit down and say, yes, I want to be a board member, I want to be recognized for ABC. So you start sending messages that what I represent is that I am a great financial person. Let me take financial person because that is nice and easy and interesting and everything else. You build a lot of capability, a lot of experience in that particular area. And your credentials, notice I'm throwing in a lot of C's as I said, I'm only going to keep to 3, but there are lots of other C's which get bundled into this. So imagine that's who you imagine you are, right? And, you think from a clarity point of view, that is what you stand for. Now imagine then from a consistent point of view, you are, yes, supposed to be this expert who's going to bring in this financial and market understanding of finances and risk or whatever to a board. But then when you go and you look at what it is you do, it is totally inconsistent. So yes, actually I do finance, but guess what? I also do a bit of entrepreneur. And oh, by the way, on a good day, I'm a great marketer. And if you really, really give me a good chance, a perfect chance, I'm a great governance expert. You may have all those things, by the way. It's not to say that a person cannot have all those capabilities. But what is a clear one? What is the one you want to stand out on? That is the one you have to consistently represent. And I'll share personal experience on this thing about clarity and consistency, and then how you generally demonstrate it. When I transitioned from a marketing career, which is, marketing for me is my heart. This whole thing of building brands, because I think that's really the power behind business. If you don't have a great brand, if you're not able to build great brands, actually, you're not going to create any business at all, because you can't sell it to anybody. And the whole idea is selling things to somebody is how the cash comes back to the business and how it grows. So I have always been that passionate. However, historically, in my time, and what it has taken me years to try and build from my personal brand as well, is that actually marketing is beyond being this person who just creates amazing slogans or does pretty advertising and things like that. Actually, that is just completely at the end of any marketing campaign, right? Or anything to do with marketing. It starts from you understanding the consumer. It starts from you understanding how you're going to make money from whatever you do and what you create from that understanding of that consumer. And the way you're going to make money is because you understand them, you're giving them what they need, and they'll be prepared to pay what you're asking them for. That is a commercial proposition. But if you look at the market and where it has been and the general trend, people say, lightheaded, really very light on any content, that you're a marketer type of thing. That's a history. So when I transitioned then into running businesses, the sense at first I used to think is that I'm still going to carry that very light, sense that how could you run a business? You're a marketing person. Marketing people just don't know how to run a business. But for me, the simple thing would have been to spend time battling and telling people, no, actually, I did a finance job. Oh, no, actually, my degree had finance. No, actually, no. The simple thing was to sit down and say consistently, that is what I do. And by the way, the value that this brings is X. So you who are looking to say you want to grow a business and somebody in marketing cannot grow a business. By the way, by me moving into general management job, I am doing marketing at a different level. And this level is around bringing the money, consistent journey. And constantly demonstrating that, projecting that in whatever I did is what I did. Therefore, when people are looking for a skill set, yes, on the board for somebody who understands consumers, who will help you with your communication, the thinking around that whole commercial proposition and how you turn that around, and customers and consumer service and everything else, I have clearly established that is a skill set I can bring. If I had felt insecure about the fact that marketing is supposed to be frivolous and ignored, and started to shift my focus, saying, no, actually, I'm a general manager. No, actually, I run a business. Running a business is not a skill that a board is going to look for, simply because there's a CEO. That's his job. You are coming to bring a particular, specific skill set to that board. So I hope I'm making myself clear around why it is just so incredibly important not to become schizophrenic in terms of the way you project yourself and in terms of the way you communicate. So my second lesson and message of today, the 3 C's. Clarity in terms of what you stand for. Consistency in making sure in whatever you do, that clarity is what people see. And finally, of course, that constancy, being always available or aware. And I think, you find a way of tactically making sure you remain visible to those who would be looking for you, who are looking for that particular skill set, etc. So for me, joining and being a part of this network is a powerful way to drive the constancy. Yeah, because you have briefed and said, this is my visibility. Me speaking to this group this evening is part of my constancy. Yeah, I have made selective choices around where I'm going to be, right? Sure, I could be on Pulse, page 15 of the Standard. No, but that's not the choice I want to make in terms of being, visible. It's really, again, choosing the targeted areas that allow you to be visible and to be known. And also things like getting the ambassadors and the people who speak to me, who know me and who will know that I am interested in this particular area so that they speak for me, my champions. So that they speak to me. But even as I've told them what I'm looking for, they're very, very clear, and they can speak to it with absolute confidence, because that is what I have been all along. So I have talked about the first topic that I was supposed to do, which is how to indeed play the game as a woman. I said, don't, you play as a person. And I've talked very, very quickly about how to brand and manage yourself. Okay. So now let me go into the softer things that I've been asked to speak to this evening. You know, the soft issues around assertive without being obnoxious and arrogant, about how to engage in smart self-promotion, about how to display confidence, and the do's and don'ts in the boardroom. So let me talk to something which is, you know, this thing called assertive and obnoxious and everything else. And maybe I'm going to talk to you about a conversation I had just the other day around speaking to a team of managers from a different organization. Yeah. And in this particular conversation, I had been asked to really talk about building confidence. Yeah. And if it is possible, am I able to share my screen, Rose? I just want to share a very, very simple presentation that I did, just so that, you know, we're able to, I'm able to just talk to a little bit around this conversation and these thoughts that happened at this particular time. So if you just give me a minute, let me just share my screen if I'm able to share my screen. Because
you are able to share, Patricia. You're able to share your screen. Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me figure out how to get to that point of sharing my screen. So without sharing everything else that's open, which tends to be the case with all these things. So let me just shut that down. I hope I don't. Am I still there? Hello?
Yes, you Patricia, you're still there.
You know, I'm trying to reduce the number of things that are open. So
open
that
windows.
Yeah. All right, you know, I'm one of those. So, you know, I might say share, and then my God, what you guys wind up seeing is very interesting. Okay. So let me talk to this presentation that I did, and ignore the fact that it has a brand on it. And let me go to the next slide. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
yes,
correct.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic.
Yes, yes.
So I feel that, you know, this whole space called confidence is a powerful one. Yeah, it's powerful in that, you know, it has been spoken about. It is something you can do. It is something that, you know, sometimes you are it, but you don't know you're it. And when I tell people that, you know, when I was younger, in fact, probably up until even my 40s, late 30s and everything, I was a very insecure person. Actually, my teens, I was probably the most insecure, as I had my self-esteem sucked and everything else. And so I did a lot of things on the outside, which were really, you know, around, you know how you do I learned to play and to show what it is I am, even though that may not have been what I was feeling. And these are some of the nuggets that really, with time, allowed me to figure out how to really think through what it's going to take for me to project myself as being confident, or what it's going to take to allow people to see me as being confident, and me as well, to tell myself I'm confident. In the same notes that I talked about walking as a person, is the same thing. If you believe you're confident, you eventually will be confident. So let's talk about, look at that phrase there. Confidence comes not from always being right, but from not fearing to be wrong. So what is the thing that holds us back? When you've watched somebody who's not confident, what is the first thing that you notice? They spend a lot of time second guessing themselves. Yeah, they sound hesitant. They may not even be sure about what to say because they are so afraid that it's going to be the wrong thing. Now, confidence comes from the fact that you could be measured enough, you can think through enough, you could be calm enough to sit down and say, look, I don't want to be an empty vessel. I'm not going to go yap, 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 say anything. Nor am I going to be the hesitant. I am going to figure out a space that I'm really confident and comfortable about. And I'm going to make sure that's what I'm going to share. And by the way, because I come from a place where I believe in what I'm saying, I'm passionate about it, it doesn't really matter whether it is wrong. What matters is that I believed in it. So that, for me, is a real key thing when we start to build confidence. So the thing between confidence and arrogance, what then becomes a real difference between those two terminologies? You know, confidence is this whole space that my own accomplishments, my skills and abilities are worthy. Yeah, this whole thing I said, when you come to a table, that is what I brought to the table. And when it starts to tip to this obnoxiousness, to this arrogance, is that when in your head, you're beginning to feel, I'm a little bit superior than all of you. I know it all. You know, listen, even the way you speak, I mean, you know, guys, you mean you don't know this stuff? You know, and it comes from very subtle things. So the first thing I tell people is, if you feel you're beginning to think that the people around you may not be worth it, or my goodness, who are these I'm talking to? Where have these people come from? First, watch out. Because chances are when you slip to that particular side, you're not sitting in their shoes. You're not figuring out where they're coming from. And then the way you're going to come across is lording it over them. It's going to come across not as the great thing called confidence. It's going to come across as arrogance. Okay? So always remember that little nuance of how things start to shift. The minute it's not about my self-worth and how I'm able to share it with humility, and it becomes this thing that, you know, I've got to show everybody what I know, then you have gone to the other side, to the dark side. And a lot of times, you know, I love this expression, this African phrase, which I have put in this particular presentation, that the thief does not steal in an unfamiliar place. Imposter syndrome is actually you in your own head telling yourself, I should not be there. So you're this own thief who's stealing from yourself, right? So imposter syndrome and this whole thing that I walk into a room, take a look around and ask myself, how did I get there? My goodness, I think they're going to know I'm not capable. Oh my God, you know, I am, you know, I've been made this appointment. I have been asked to do this, but they must know that I have no idea. I've never done it and everything else. Rule number one, I have found in very many instances, when I say I don't know, I actually come across as a lot more confident. But it's also about the way you say it. Yeah. If I walk into somewhere and I sit down and say it, and they say, oh God, you know, I don't know. It's different to say, guys, help me understand this. I actually don't know. Can somebody help tell me how this is? Big points you score. Because the first point you score is there's very many people around there who may not have known, but they didn't have the confidence to ask it. So now they start looking with a lot of respect because, my God, that person's so confident to say that they don't know, at least they don't. And then to the ones who are looking at you, what do they say? They sit down and say, my goodness, imagine the confidence that this person, imagine the ability that this person has to be able to admit they don't know and feel they're not losing anything. So always remember, in anything that you lose, a lot of times, it is something that you are taking away from yourself. So I tell people, get out from being in your head. If you arrive somewhere and you spend your whole time thinking about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to look and everything else, that you're already stealing from yourself. It's not going to even take somebody else to do it. It's going to be you who's already done it in advance for yourself. So that is a real watch out. And some of the hints I've given about how to play this game, and I was talking about how to do listing. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. And when I talk about shooting yourself in the foot, and some of the ways a lot of women and people shoot themselves, is ask yourself, when are you the most confident? And chances are the time you're most confident is when you're also comfortable in the way you look. How many times have you gone someplace, and there's two opposites I'm going to give, whereby you've understood the situation. Okay, let me give a frivolous, let me give a light example of this particular situation, so that we can get some context. I always say that if I reflect on the times when I start stealing from myself, feeling like an imposter or feeling that I'm not confident, is I've arrived somewhere and it says dress. I didn't read the dress code, and it says formal dress code or whatever else. Now and then I appear totally casual and everything else. Now there are two things. As you go up your confidence ladder, you won't give two knots about that. And in fact, you'll be very confident that I'm the only one who can pull this out. But until you get to that point, what does it do to you? You spend your whole time thinking, oh my gosh, look at everybody, oh, black tie, and here I am in jeans, oh, I'm in sneakers, oh my God, these sneakers, I'm so short, I should have worn heels and I could be taller like it. You're already imposter, you're already removing from yourself. So why do that? And it works the same way when you sit in formal situations, when you're dealing in situations with boards, you're dealing with leadership and executive positions. Create your style. Remember, I talked about the personal branding at the beginning. Become comfortable in that style. Now, once you're comfortable in that style, you can fly. You could handle the world. You can do whatever it is because it's my style and I'm comfortable in this style. And so it doesn't matter where you are. Nobody's going to take that from you, including yourself. So the next lesson. And then there's always this conversation about, okay, how do I play the game? How am I going to navigate this ladder? How am I going to make sure I'm working my way, around it? And one thing you've noticed in all these points that I'm making is I am trying to put the control back to myself. Because in a lot of things, if you cede control to some other person, and that person could even be yourself, the other self, the self that sits on the shoulder and keeps telling you, no, you're not, no. You cede control to that one. Or you cede control to others to build this brand, to figure out who you are. You then start to remove the power and the ability to be who you can. So it's not what you are that's going to hold you back. It's what you think you are not. Yes? The more time you spend thinking that I am not good enough, that I cannot fit in, that thing is just old men and I'm a young girl, that, oh my goodness, I like to dress, my dress style is really zhuzhy, sexy, and all the other women are dressed like this, that, and the other, they're going to tell me I'm a bit too frivolous. All those things are doing what? Yeah, they're already telling you what you are not for that particular forum. Why are you doing that? Who says by being who you are that you cannot create that space that becomes so powerful, so unique, so confident that people want to be you? And then you're the one who starts to set the new standard. So always remember that. It's what you think you are not, which is always going to hold you back. Think of every single situation where you've been given an opportunity and you sit down and you're like, oh, okay, no, that one I can't do. No, I don't have that particular experience. Says who? If you have the potential and you have the ability, of course you can do it. And finally, I think I'm going to get out of this stop share and just go back to having the conversation, is that we have to recognize this whole, sorry, I don't know where I've gone. We have to figure out this whole space that being powerless and feeling powerless in any situation, the only person, the first person who can actually save you is always you. The minute you believe that, and the minute you work through that, that is your first stage of winning in this game of building confidence. So I think for me, I think I have shared a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas, a lot of concepts. So what I would like to do now is perhaps close the conversation and wrap it up, in trying to recap the things that I had and what I have said. The first point, whatever you do, if there's one thing I want everybody to take out today, is start going and forgetting this gender thing that you are. Yes, you are a woman. Nobody's going to take that away from you. Yes, you have boobs, and yes, you have legs, and yes, you have hip. Yes, nobody's going to ever take that away from you. Nobody's going to take it away from you that you like to be made up, you like to look pretty, you like pretty dresses. Nobody should ever take that away from you. Nobody's going to take it away that you have a higher voice versus a deeper voice. Nobody's ever going to take that away. But what you're going to do to play that is not dwell on it from a gender lens. Dwell on it from a capability and the diversity that you bring. So I am a person. I'm not a woman. Second point that I have brought into this conversation is that the 3 C's, build your personal brand, always be clear, always be consistent in that clarity on what you project, and make sure you're choosing the forums to make sure there's a constancy in the view of who that clear, consistent person is, how that is communicated. Second message that I've given. And then the third message that I have shared today is all those spaces around what indeed is confidence. This whole space that confidence always is the ability to not fear being wrong. Confidence is really about bringing your self-worth to the table and not spending time trying to figure out how I can make others look worse so I look better. Confidence for me is trying to debunk this imposter syndrome that we seem to live in. And that imposter syndrome is actually ourselves and in our own heads that we are building that. It is really about us a lot of times sabotaging ourselves because either we've gone in unprepared. And remember, the minute you're unprepared, you're hesitant. Hesitant equals not confident. Always be prepared. Always make sure, even if you're prepared, that you're brilliant at winging not being prepared by using nuggets of stuff that you have. Okay, so be prepared, be comfortable when you appear someplace. Figure out the moment when you're going to show up and show up with on that particular moment with something that makes sense. Don't be that empty vessel that always just has to speak. And then finally, if you want to walk your way up, always focus on what you are, not what you are not. And with that, I think I'd like to just round up the points that I'd like to share and say thank you for listening. And I believe at this point, we're going to move into conversations. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Patricia. Thank you for your thoughts around this interesting topic. I know you picked on 3 C's, but I could pick out a few others. You talked about clarity, consistency, constancy, but you also touched about credentials because, without credentials,
Yes.
difficult to be able to sit there, that you need to be comfortable in your style, whatever that style is. And last but not least, confidence as well. So thank you for that.
Confidence and communicate. There's so many. I mean, they're all bundled into all of them. Yeah.
Great. So the ladies have been posting their questions, so I will keep those for now. But just to touch on some of the compliments from the ladies, great session, great focus on what you are. The 3 C's have been an eye-opener. So, great conversation going on right there. So before we go into our breakout rooms, perhaps you could field a few questions if you don't mind.
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
We have one from Naomi Njeri who says, how do you handle rejection while you're still embracing the 3 C's?
With great difficulty, but with grace. I always tell people that, it would be very facetious of me to sit down and say, oh, you've gotten rejected, just walk out and be cool and come. It doesn't work like that. We're human beings. And as human beings, we have feelings. I sometimes tell people I'm not made of concrete and I don't have a heart that's made out of concrete. Of course I feel. And one of the tips that I tell people is, don't pretend to not feel bad, because that's akin to not grieving. But then on the other hand, don't grieve forever. So if you face rejection, I think one of the things I've done, I guess this is what's worked for me. I don't know. I'm just sharing my own personal experience, and it may work differently for other people, is I take time to feel sorry for myself. Okay? Because I need to get that out of my system. I'm going to take time to feel sorry for myself, and I'll feel sorry for myself, and I'll do all the beating up, I'll do whatever it is. But I give it a timeout, right? I say, okay, I'm going to feel sorry for myself, I'm going to feel sorry. I'll do it for a day max, I'll do it for 2 days. If it's a really bad thing, maybe a week. Maximum, maybe a month. But, the older I've gotten, it's come closer to a day than to a month, okay? Then after that, I start, even as I'm feeling sorry for myself, I start to ask myself, what was it that I was not? Yeah, what did I focus on? Why was I rejected? What are the areas that I can improve on? What did I not do? And start to ask myself the lessons that I took, and even try and get feedback. Feedback is really hard to receive. I tell you, it's taken me many years to be able to accept feedback and to be open to it, whatever is coming, whether positive or not. But that the moment you're able to brace yourself and hold your breath and be able to tell somebody, okay, give me the feedback, give me the feedback, give me the good, give me the bad, and take it with an open heart. It's the best gift that you can get. Feel sorry for yourself, then make sure I go get the feedback, and then start to analyze the key things that I'm going to do differently, right? And then I tell myself the next time I'm going to ace it, right? So that for me has been the general pattern, Some things I decide, okay, it was even not meant to be for me, but I don't do it out of, that, anyway, it wasn't. No, I do it from a perspective of after reflection and really rationalizing. Then something I could say maybe it was not meant for me. But those I know was meant for me and I didn't do, I take real lessons, from that particular rejection. So that's my tool. So whatever you do, don't deny yourself the ability to feel sorry for yourself. I mean, go through that motion, because that's the only way you're going to heal, right? But then get out of it and very quickly start to identify what you're going to do differently the next time so that nobody rejects you. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Don't grieve forever. You must be able to transition into the next phase. Okay, so we have one more before we get into the breakaway rooms. This is an interesting one. I won't mention her name. She says she got an appointment in an agency as the chair. The agency deals with a really technical area for which she's not an expert. So during one of the onboarding retreats, one of the facilitators kept talking about how some people are not professional in the area that the agency is dealing in, and that there were ceremonial appointees to those chairs and were there to serve political purposes only. So how do you handle such a person, within the boardroom setting?
Oh my God, I love people like that. Oh my goodness, you should give me that. Okay, but maybe that's me. I revel. I really revel.
I do too, Patricia.
I revel in situations where people are trying to make me feel small. Heaven. So remember the points that I made, right? A lot of times you're your own worst and you're the only one who can save yourself, right? So when somebody gets to that point where they're doing that, what are they trying to do? They are trying to make themselves feel better than you, stronger than you, and everything else. So there's a degree of false superiority they're trying to give themselves. So with situations like that, the most important thing is do not for 1 minute show that it's getting to you. Because remember, when somebody is doing something like that, what they're trying to do is they're trying to cut through your armor. They're trying to get you to become emotional. They're trying to get you so that they prove the point. And then they go on, they say, and you see, and on top of that, they can't even hold themselves. Let me tell you, in situations like that, that's probably when I'm at my best confident self. And what my best confident self is always going to do is it's going to be calm. I'm going to remember the hints around the leaning in. I'll be sitting like this for those who do it, and I'll be smiling and I'll be very whatever. And I will be looking, and when I have the opportunity to, I am going to say the reason why I am the one who's doing it and not the facilitator, but not in a direct way. I will sit down and say, look, the reason that this chair, one of the things that was required for this particular role was, the maturity to bring everything together, the ability to have a strategic view, the ability to look at how things can be done differently, because it is in somebody who's from the outside that a difference can be made. That is a reason I believe, and in strategy, it's usually the person who sees things from the outside who can bring the difference, who can make sure the change happens. And remember, with me being the chair here, there's lots of people with a technical capability. We don't need to double up on the technical capability because we already have that skill. So what I'm bringing is what was missing. That's exactly what I'll say. And the message would land and I would move on. I don't know. Whoever asked the question, what do you think?
Patricia,
I
let
love
me
situations
also
like
share
that.
just that had actually happened to my chair.
Yes.
I serve on a state corporation board, 2 boards, but one of them.
Yes.
And so we had this session in Naivasha between the board and management, and we had a consultant with us.
Yes.
And this consultant literally attacked our chair.
Oh my God.
With management in the room. So he kept
Oh
on
my
going
God.
and on and
How
on
is
about
that you as consultant? How are they a consultant in the first place?
exactly. So
Oh,
I
God.
calmed myself down. First, I was dying to get my hands on him, but I calmed myself down.
Yeah.
And I said, Chair, I'd just like to request that management step out for a few minutes because there is an issue that we as a board need to deal with.
Yeah.
Perhaps which we need to deal with right away. So management stepped out. And I did exactly what you said, very measured in my feedback to the consultant.
Yes.
But I told him in no uncertain terms that I was not going to sit there and listen to him bringing down our chair in front of management and in front of all of us.
Yes.
And I was the only one who did that. The rest of the board were just sitting there and I was wondering, what's wrong with these people? But since that time, the one thing that the chair of the board does is to defer to me since that day.
Yes.
So he knows I have his back.
But remember the point that I made?
Yes.
Everybody was thinking if they say anything outside of that, they were afraid they would be wrong.
Exactly.
But what did you do? You did the exact, is not the fear of being wrong, but it's saying, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say the right thing because
exactly. And the chair was not even going to say anything to defend himself,
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have it.
No. I love situations like that. I mean, I will never let them pass. I mean, I always give the example of a situation where I had a board chair and I needed, I was, because some boards, of course, you have to speak to the board chair if you're getting another opportunity. And this was another board opportunity. So of course you've got to go and say, listen, I've been approached for this opportunity. I just want to let you know and everything else. And this is what we need to deal with. This particular chair from, I don't know what school of thought they're from. They decided to tell me on my behalf that look, you know, can you handle all this? You know, I think you're taking on too much. I don't feel you're capable. No, he didn't say capable. He just felt, I think it, you know, you're just taking on too much. You can't do this. You can't manage. So I sat down and I said, you know, I said, okay, but by the time I'm coming and I'm considering it, I must have felt that I could do it. He said, no, from what he feels, he could not. Now, if I give some context, this chair, what I was asking for was to do the third thing, or, you know, to do another third opportunity or fourth. This particular chair, for the record, had, you know, 5 times the number of things I was doing. So of course, it was a degree of arrogance that, you know, people like him can do it, maybe you can't, from whatever context he came from. And I was very, very clear. I said, listen, you need to tell me, you know, how you are able to manage 5 times the number of things, and what you feel that would hold me back from being able to handle this one. Do you have a concern with what I'm contributing for this particular thing? He said, no, he didn't. So I said, so help me understand, you know, what it is that I'm doing. So he said, oh, from a time. I said, but it's not for you to determine my time. Yeah, I am the one who controls my time. I'm the one who figures out how to make it happen. And that in itself, I think, is what we have to learn to do. Because a lot of our people, because of who this person is, who he stands for and everything else, would have been so wild, they go down colors, okay, yeah, okay, maybe you're right. Why should somebody determine for you what you have time for and what you're not capable to have time for, especially if that same person is doing 5 times more? So they've already decided for you what you're capable of and what you're not. That, I tell you, is how you should not play the game. Okay?
Interesting. You seem to have opened a Pandora's box on that one. So we'll take one more from Judy.
Yeah.
Who said, you know, you touched on the topic around feedback. And she says, you know, for years, she was told she was too aggressive, assertive, dominant. And so based on that, she toned down way, way, way back. But in toning down, she lost herself. And realized that actually a lot of the messaging was from insecure traditional men. So how do you sift through feedback so that you know this is good for me? This one, perhaps not.
I read that comment and I was really tickled because, look, I will give you a very simple hint. There's a lesson that I learned in life about this thing, whether you're aggressive, assertive, you're this, you're that, or the other. Ask yourself, how do you leave people feeling? That's it. How do you leave people feeling? I'm assertive. I don't think anybody could ever sit down and say I'm not assertive. Yeah. I find a way to get what I want done to be done. So the simple question you ask is, in your assertiveness, in your drive or whatever it is, what are the points that Judy, dominant or aggressiveness or whatever it is you feel, or you've been accused or you've been given feedback on. Ask yourself, if you were the one who was being spoken to, who was being told things in that particular way, if you were the one who somebody was speaking to, how would you feel? And for Judy, that is a simple answer to that question. If indeed you had somebody speaking to you the way you are speaking in this, whatever you feel maybe have been aggressive or whatever, and you'd not have been happy, so then don't do it. If on the other hand, you'd have been fine with the tonality and the way you speak and everything, if somebody was speaking to you, then if you're not fine, it means other people are not going to be fine. There's one lesson that one of the most profound pieces of advice that really transitioned my leadership and who I am many, many years ago that I was given. And that is, always leave people feeling good. Yeah. Even if you have to give them the toughest message, the hardest feedback and everything else, or you have to drive for something, do it. But then make them feel that it's something they want to do and that you were driving for the urgency. If you leave people, can I use French? I'm sorry. I'm going to say, if you leave people because of the way you've spoken and it's aggressive and assertive, and you leave them feeling like shit, I'm sorry. That you have to deal with, because the legacy you're going to have, you're not going to carry them with you, and they're going to do it just because you have said. And the minute they can ignore you, they will do that. So just look at it always from putting yourself in the shoes of the person receiving the message and asking yourself, if I was the one on that other side, would it be okay for me to receive it that way? If it's fine, then good. Be who you are. Have I answered that, Judy?
Well, yes and no. So I think my issue was not so much the example I was giving was by way of background, but my issue is, how do you sift good feedback from bad feedback? Not necessarily in terms of, I'm aggressive and so on and so forth.
Okay, all right.
And for the record, I am such a pleasant person.
I can imagine. I think so. I agree. So let me tell you, how do you sift good and bad? Try and figure out where it's coming from. Yeah. You see, the example that I gave, that feedback about that, you may not be capable, or you don't have the time and everything else. For me, I looked at where is it coming from. This is person who clearly already had concerns. I mean, they probably felt, okay, women, if you're doing this, you're running that, when are you going to be home? And I could see all those things running through their head. And for me, when we talk about sifting, is really looking at where is it coming from? Where is that feedback coming from? When somebody is telling me, Patricia, some of the best feedback, for example, I got was very early in my career. When I started marketing, I thought I was really hotter, because I was here in Kenya, and, our idea, we're very soft and mean, when it comes to feedback. And I always talk about these two concepts, hard and fair versus soft and mean. Soft and mean is that we as Kenyans struggle to be honest and candid with somebody to their face. But then we go behind and we start saying, that one, can't make it. So here I was, when I first started my career here, I was thinking, I'm really hot. I know it, I understand it, I got it. And then I went to work in the UK. And, the rigor and the demand and everything was just so much different than I was as a marketer. Of course, I knew I could do this presentation, and I didn't know how to analyze research. I didn't know how to do data looking at it. I had absolutely no idea. But here I was thinking I'm great, and analysis for where to place it. I hadn't done any of that, but in my head, I thought I was hot. I mean, I'm here, aren't I? And so the first bit of feedback, when I did that first half-year appraisal from one of my first bosses, a lady called Kathy, I still remember Kathy Williams still today. And she sat down, and it was really, really painful to hear. And not painful because she was being mean, painful because she was knocking me off this little high stool that I'd plunked myself on. And what I recognized after doing that thing about mourning and feeling terrible and saying, God, why did I come here? This is terrible. I realized everything she was telling me is what I needed to do to build my capability. There was nothing she said that was personal. There was nothing she said that had anything to do with my character. There was nothing she said. She even taught me about the things that I'm good at. But then she sat down and told me, you have to learn this. You didn't do this. You have to understand insight. You have to figure out the research. You did not look in this proposal around the analysis on the return on investment and everything else. All things I'd never done. But for me, I was like, those are like details. And for me, I recognized where that was coming from. And so that is a rule that I always take. Where is this feedback coming from? Okay.
Excellent. Very well explained. Completely understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy, and all the ladies for the questions and comments. I think at this point, we want to get into our breakaway session so that then we can be able to have a more intimate discussion around the topics. We do have 3 ladies who have graciously volunteered to facilitate the breakaway sessions. And our first co-facilitator is Elizabeth Ndemo. She's a financial services expert with over 20 years experience in the banking industry. Her levels of expertise include leadership, strategy, credit analysis, and business development. She is the founder of Refugee Group, and they focus on car rentals, insurance, and financial services. She currently chairs Real People Kenya Limited, which is a microfinance institution. Our second co-facilitator is Beatrice Sige. She's the group head of HR at Anvil Shield Group Holdings Limited, a group of companies with different business lines in the financial and fintech space. She has over 8 years experience providing multidisciplinary expertise in HR, stakeholder engagement, as well as creating culture and talent development. And last but not least, we have Christine Wikali. Just give me a second so I can get her profile. So it looks like technology is messing me up a little bit. So Christine, perhaps you could just, introduce yourself. Looks like technology has failed me on this end. Christine, are you on the call? Okay, so I think it's been put up now. Christine Mikali is a political scientist. She's an active arbitrator, having special expertise in commercial and construction arbitrations, and acts as both arbitrator as well as party representative in different arbitration sessions. So Kantai will quickly move us into our virtual rooms, and Patricia will be our roving ambassador this evening, where she will move from one room to another, where we can ask her questions at a more personal level. And then thereafter, in about 20 minutes, we'll come back into plenary and we can share our experiences before we wrap up. So Kantai, over to you to break us up into our virtual rooms. Back in, so we can wrap up and close this session. Hopefully, Patricia, you'll be back.
Yes, you invite me and I will.
So a few more ladies coming back. Excellent. So what a session. I can imagine the conversations that have happened. I think there's been a lot that the ladies have certainly engaged with, learned. And we're certainly looking forward to having you again, Patricia, in our forum. So perhaps before we give you the last word, I know time has really flown, but if you could just ask the facilitators in 1 minute to just talk about perhaps one key highlight from the discussion, within the virtual rooms. So we'll start off with you, Elizabeth. I will give you exactly a minute to just tell us what the key highlight was in your discussion.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rose, and thank you again, Patricia, for a very great session. I think for us, we will follow, we are good students, so we'll follow what Patricia shared with us. She told us at least let us take away 1, 2, or 3 things. I think for us, the key thing that stood for most of us was the issue of clarity, clarity. They need to be very clear on who we are and what we stand for. Actually, the 3 C's, clarity, consistency, and constancy. That was very key for most of us who are in room 3. Then there's the issue of assertiveness and how to be assertive, being assertive without appearing arrogant, and most importantly, being able to claim your space, especially in a space where you feel that the people around you, or there's an individual around you being arrogant. So just being assertive in a correct way. And also last but not least was the issue of confidence. Being confident in our skin and being confident on who we are, and being confident that we are not women, but we are human beings that have specific needed capabilities and qualifications. Yeah,
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for that, and for taking the time to facilitate your virtual room. Christine, we'll give you a minute. Karibu. Christine Mikali, we'll give you a minute.
Yes, Rose. So in our group, we discussed a lot, but I'll just for the sake of time, I'll just take like 2 or 3 points. One, we have to have a deeper degree of confidence and always be strategic and handling all the challenges which will be posed upon you. Always listen to hear before you respond. And let me just mention, give credit to Catherine. She has said we need to invest a lot on emotional intelligence, because anytime you'll be in any board setup, you'll always be bombarded with all sorts of challenges. But once you invest a lot in emotional intelligence, you'll be able to navigate and come up with a solution and amicable ways to handle all the challenges which you will face. And last but not least, when you're addressing to people, look at their face, because eyes communicate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much for that brief summary of your session. Okay, last but not least, Beatrice again.
Thank you, Rose, and Patricia. I think on our end, we had a very engaging session in room 1, and I'll just have a summary of just the key highlights. So we spoke about the personal branding, and we narrowed down to identifying having that unique value proposition that you bring to the table is basically what would sell you out in terms of the personal branding. We also talked about the challenges that we face in the boardrooms or probably in the spaces that we serve. And one thing that was made clear would be always be prepared and be comfortable in wherever you find yourself, so that you're able to bring you out your best self. We also discussed about imposter syndrome, where we tend to give ourselves self-limiting beliefs. And from the conversation, we were able to identify that once you are able to know the triggers, you work around tackling the same. Patricia was also able to give us the do's and don'ts in the boardroom. And the team also took away confidence, consistency, and basically ensuring, like having it at the back of your mind that basically your brand is you. So just be yourself and bring out the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beatrice, for that summary. And thank you, ladies, for being brave to chair your virtual sessions. So Patricia, you have the last word before we say goodnight to the ladies. Your thoughts on this topic, final words of wisdom?
Well, I think I've said them all. Remember, you're a person, not a girl, a chick, a woman. You are a person. When it is in a professional sense, you are this person bringing in this professional capability. Always start to build that muscle and that way of thinking. And that is the best confidence booster you can ever have. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much for always being available to Women on Boards whenever we knock on your door. And I'm sure this will not be the last discussion.
No, definitely not.
On Matters Boardroom. So allow me to invite Catherine to share what next. I know that this has been the 6th session. We've had, a panel discussion at the beginning where we're talking about developing leadership on boards. We also talked about board dynamics, and Rita covered that effectively. Flora Mutai talked about effective board leadership. We also had Julia Skipke-Teach, who spoke about boards that deliver. How do you move from compliance to competitive advantage? And John, certainly laid it well when he talked about boards that lead, when to take charge, when to partner, and when to walk away. And last but not least, we've had Patricia this evening, who's talked about, how to play the game as a woman. Interesting 6 months, but I know Catherine has something special for us. So Catherine, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you, Patricia. This was an awesome session. I think we've learned so much. There are so many takeaways. I know the temptation is to take away a lot. You end up doing not too well in that regard, but I can't choose what to pick from what you said. And so I'm struggling with reducing my takeaways. Ladies, it's been a wonderful 6 months, really, really wonderful 6 months. And I'm reminded of the quotation that we started off with, which is that, it's Isaac Newton who said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." It is giants like Patricia who are holding us up, giants like Patricia who are helping us see far, and indeed the rest of our brand ambassadors. We cannot, thank them enough for the sessions they have given us since 6 months ago. And we really want to appreciate that. Now, when we started off this program, we said that we wanted to tap into the existing knowledge, skills, and experience of our brand ambassadors, and to really use these sessions for them to transfer some of these skills to our members. And I think I have attended all of them except one. And I think they have shared very, very selflessly. They have passed on those skills. It is just a question of us practicing what we have been told, practicing what we have heard. It doesn't happen in a day. It takes practice, it takes resilience, it takes failing and standing up and doing it all over again. But I think if we just practice what we have had, we're going to be better people on a day-to-day basis. We want to hear from you. We want to hear feedback about this program, which we started 6 months ago. As we think about starting the next cohort, as we think about even starting a cohort that just focuses on public sector as well, please tell us what you think about the program, what can be improved about this program, what we can add on, what, maybe some things that did not go so well. Please let us know so that we can improve the program for the next cohort that we shall be signing on. We are talking about this graduation, and graduation is expected to be next month. We are hoping to invite the CJ for our graduation, so look out for communication in that regard. We hope that it will be possible for her to give us a date within the month of May, because anything beyond that with Kenya going into the elections becomes a little more difficult. So we will come back to you sharing information about that graduation and what we shall be doing for that graduation. I don't want to go away without thanking Rose. Rose, you have been the glue that has put all this together, right from writing up the concept note and moderating all the 6 sessions. Thank you so much for doing this so willingly, doing this without asking for anything, just sharing your knowledge, your time, your experience. We can't thank you enough. Thank you to the Secretariat as well, who are always on hand to make sure that the sessions are set up, to make sure that they communicate to the participants, to the brand ambassadors. Thank you. We don't take your work for granted. Thank you to the brand ambassadors. These are a special group of people who are so willing to share their knowledge. Patricia, on behalf of all of the board of Women on Boards Network, please pass our gratitude to the rest of the brand ambassadors of Women on Boards. Thank you so much, and back to you, Rose.
Thank you, Catherine. I really cannot add any more. It's been such a pleasure hosting all of you for the last 6 months. And we started looking forward to the graduation and to season 2 as well. Thank you, ladies. God bless and keep well. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good night,
Yeah.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.